As a child language expert, mothers of babies and toddlers contact me because they're concerned about the number of words their child is saying. On the flip side, mothers of older kids don't contact me because they say that their child is talking and they're fine, and they don't realize that the child is experiencing language difficulties. I tell both mothers, and they're very surprised to learn that language is more than words. It affects children academically, socially, emotionally, cognitively, and in all areas of life. In today's video, I'm gonna walk you through language developmental milestones from birth through kindergarten. Most of the time when you Google these milestones, you will find from birth to 36 months. But I'm gonna take you through kindergarten so that you can be prepared to act fast in order to benefit your child's language and academic growth. I wanna emphasize that this information below is not meant to scare or shame you. I would like to equip you with the tools that you need to empower your child's growth. If you're concerned, contact a speech and language therapist in your area. Let's get into language milestones for young children. I'm going to present to you a range. On the low end of the range is the milestone, what 90% of children can say. On the top end of the range is considered average, what 50% of children can say. You want your child's words to be in the range. This applies to whether your child speaks one or more languages. Bilingual children meet the same milestones at the same time as monolingual children. And if you're interested to learn more about bilingual language development with me, drop your questions below. There's also non-language checkpoints that I want you to be aware about. So make sure you listen to the whole video. Let's get started. At 12 months, children have 1 to 5 plus words. At 18 months, children have 10 to 50 plus words. At 24 months, children have 50 to 300 plus words and 2-word combinations, like more milk, daddy, sit. At 36 months, children have 250 words to 1,000 plus words and speak in full sentences. Let's look at an example. A child is 24 months and has 30 words. Is this considered a delay or not? Well, we judge a delay by more than just words, but for me, this would be a reason to call a speech and language therapist because it's less words than the lower end of the range. What about a child that's 32 months and has around 200 words? I would contact a speech and language therapist for more guidance here. Not all children are gonna need an evaluation or therapy. That's why it's better to call a therapist in your area. Now let's talk about non-language checkpoints that you need to know about. Before 12 months, children babble, they wave hello, they shake their head no, and they point by 14 months. This is a huge cognitive marker. Before words emerge, children usually imitate gestures, such as clapping, or in the song, The Wheels on the Bus, Itsy Bitsy Spider. They also imitate sounds, such as in the song, E-I-E-I-O, boo, or achoo. You also want to think about what is their sound inventory? What consonants and vowels can they say? What about their other motor milestones? When did they crawl, sit, stand, walk? What about their fine motor skills? How are their play skills like? And this is very important. Is there a history of ear infections? I always recommend my students to go to an ENT for a full checkup as well as a hearing test by an audiologist. Just because your child can hear when you call their name doesn't mean that they don't have fluid in their ear or other things that a doctor can rule out or rule in. You also want to think about their eye contact And did they have a language regression? That's when a child says certain words, but then stop saying them altogether. These are things to speak to your doctor or a speech therapist about. Let's get into language development in preschool, kindergarten, and beyond. And this is where I see the biggest misconceptions. Because children are usually in preschool and they can talk. But teachers, doctors, parents, and other professionals don't realize that just because a child can speak doesn't mean that they don't have language difficulties. And they often don't trace back social, emotional, academic difficulties that a child is experiencing to their language development. So let's get started. Here's what you need to know. In preschool, a child's vocabulary is thousands of words. And while I don't expect you to sit and write and count every word they say, their vocabulary should be robust. Children should be able to label nouns, verbs. Their grammar should be appropriate. Full sentences. They should be able to tell a story that's comprehensive to people that don't know them. For example, a student of mine was telling me a story about soccer. And this is how it went. Messi and I was playing soccer and I saw the goal and I had the ball and ran and boom and over here and over there. And so yes, this student in preschool is speaking in sentences, but it's very hard to understand him because his vocabulary isn't specific and his grammar is not accurate. He's not producing sentences that make sense to unfamiliar listeners. So it's very hard to understand him even though he does have words. Children in preschool, kindergarten, and beyond are expected to answer questions. Who, what, where, when, why. And this applies to whether you're telling them a story, you're reading them a book, they're watching a show or a movie, or they're telling you about their day. You also want to think about what are their social skills like? Who do they play with? What do they like to play? How do they play? What happens when there's a conflict? Do they use their words to resolve the conflict, to express their basic wants and needs? And this is where you usually see children that hit or bite or get frustrated or have tantrums when they're older, like in preschool, kindergarten, and above. And teachers don't always relate that back to a language difficulty. What about their learning? Are they learning math, the alphabet, how to read? Do they participate and sit and pay attention during circle time or other activities? Do they require one-on-one support to learn? You also want to think about whether a child follows directions, participates in class, and gets through the school day. If your child is experiencing a difficulty in school, you should be thinking about whether it can be language related, even though your child may speak. Let's talk about non-language checkpoints for older kids. Here you want to know what their sleep is like. Do they snore at night? Do they play with an open mouth posture? You want to know if there's a history of ear infections or other allergies or sickness. Was there a big change in the family in the last 6 months? Did they change schools, a new sibling, move, a divorce, a death in the family? What is their attention, joint attention, and regulation like? How much screen time do they get? Are they playing video games or watching TV or watching YouTube hours and hours on end? What's their eating like? Are there any feeding concerns? Are they picky eaters? Do they have sensory issues, eat or when they play? These are my 3 golden questions for children in preschool, kindergarten, and beyond. How does your child's language development compare to peers their age? Or if you have other children, how does your child's language development compare to their siblings when they were that age? Also want to think about whether there's a family history of language, attention, reading, or learning difficulties. If your child has difficulties learning in general, you'll see it in language and non-language tasks. Remember that language is more than words. Children that have strong language skills are confident, happy, and thriving. They go to school hungry to learn. They do better socially, academically, emotionally, and cognitively. Whether your child has a language delay or whether your child has good language skills but you want to be proactive and make sure that you strengthen their language skills even more. Make sure to watch my next video. I'm going to walk you through my proven strategy that I used on my children and on hundreds of children in the best preschool in Miami. These are tips and tricks that you can apply at home in 10 minutes for max results and max success. Easy, quick, and free. Be sure to catch the next video.